Welcome to the Compliance Council on Command webinar series. Today's topic is the CFPB's Forced Place Insurance Rules. I'm Jeff Anderson, an attorney at Dickinson Law focused on regulatory compliance for community banks. The Forced Place Insurance Rule is part of the RESPA servicing rules in Regulation X. You'll find this rule, the majority of it, out in 1024.37. The rule requires some new disclosures in association with forced place insurance and limits the fees that can be collected in certain instances. So you have an initial notice and a reminder notice under this new rule. Prior to charging for forced place insurance, you have to provide the initial notice, deliver or mail it at least 45 days prior to charging a fee. Then the borrower has to be provided with a reminder notice at least 15 days prior to charging that fee. There are model forms available for this, so let me back out. I'll show you what the model form looks like. This is what the model form looks like. You can insert your own header and your own letterhead here, and you can change some of the information as long as it remains substantially similar. And the summary of it, as you'll see, is notifying them that your records show that their insurance has expired, that you are forced placing insurance on them, that they're going to be required to pay it, and then noting that this forced place insurance could be more expensive and may not provide the same level of coverage as what they had before. After you've provided those two notices, then you can charge a fee for forced place insurance. That doesn't mean that you can't collect money for that interim period. So that doesn't mean you can collect money, you can collect a fee while these notices are outstanding. You need to say you have an event that happens where their insurance has expired. Then you have to provide two notices within a 45-day time span. You don't have to eat the premiums for that period. You can retroactively charge a fee to cover that period after you provided those two notices. Once you've provided those, you can charge going forward and retroactively. If you're renewing or replacing existing forced place insurance, only a renewal notice is required. You don't need to go through those two initial and reminder notices. Key limitation on fees for forced place insurance: you can't assess any forced place insurance fee unless there's a reasonable basis to believe the borrower has failed to comply with the agreement. This is really tied to some of the people that were doing wrong in the forced place insurance area. So this limitation is likely not going to limit community banks that often. You wouldn't force place insurance on one of your borrowers unless you had a reasonable basis. What this is, and if you did, there would be some cause of action. There'd be some damage. This is just putting that explicitly in the regulation that you can't charge a forced place insurance fee unless there's a reasonable basis. You have to cancel forced place insurance within 15 days of receiving evidence of coverage, and this is where you may have to eat some of the insurance premiums. You have to refund for any premiums for which there were overlapping coverage. So if you force place insurance and you get evidence of coverage, you have to cancel within 15 days, and you have to refund for any period that that borrower had overlapping insurance. Any forced place insurance charges have to be reasonable and only for services performed. This is really attempting to eliminate those creditors that were really profiting off of forced place insurance, getting high kickback fees on forced place insurance that were really unreasonable charges in the regulator's eyes. If you have a borrower that pays their insurance out of an escrow account, you have limitations on forced placing insurance on that borrower. For those borrowers that pay forced place insurance out of their escrow, you can't force place separate insurance unless you're unable to disperse funds out of the escrow account. And unable to disperse funds does not mean that there are inadequate funds in that account. It means there's some other reason that you can't disperse funds out of the escrow account. Maybe the insurance company won't take money through the escrow anymore. You have to, what this really means to kind of decode this unable to disperse funds language, it means if you have a borrower that's paying their forced place insurance out of escrow, you have to pay the money forward into that escrow and keep that current policy in place if you can. Unless there's some other reason that you can't, you have to attempt to keep the current policy in place. What the regulators are getting at with this is it's generally going to be cheaper for the borrower to keep their current policy in place as opposed to forced placing separate insurance. So the CFPB's reasoning, well, if they're paying it through their escrow, the bank should have access to be able to put money into that escrow. And if they can, they should do that as opposed to forced placing separate insurance and really profiting off of it or using that forced place insurance in a punitive manner. The one exception to that is for small servicers, those banks that service 5,000 or fewer mortgage loans. You can still purchase separate forced place insurance for borrowers that pay it out of escrow, but you can only do it if that separate forced place insurance costs the borrower less than it would to disperse it through escrow. That seems like a pretty toothless exemption to me. I don't know that many instances are going to arise where that separate insurance is going to be less than what it would cost to go through the escrow. But if you're a small servicer and that is in fact the case, then you can do that. That's it on the forced place insurance rules, the CFPB's forced place insurance rules. 2 new notices, limitation on the escrow, and you have to cancel within 15 days of getting coverage. If you need that model form, want to get a copy of that, shoot me an email or give me a call. My contact information is at the beginning of this presentation. Thank you.